Hey, RetconRaider here. I've got some bigger videos in the works, but today I thought I'd take a look at one of the other indie projects I've been keeping an eye on. Dark Future, Blood Red States, by Auroch Digital. So, what is Dark Future? Well, the original Dark Future was a tabletop miniature war game published by Games Workshop back in 1988, which saw limited support in the form of an expansion, magazine articles, and almost a dozen novels. Based heavily on movie properties such as Mad Max, The Road Warrior, and Death Race 2000, Dark Future took place in the grim post-apocalyptic future of 1995. It presented us with a grim alternate timeline in which severe climate change and economic disaster had crippled much of the free world, and the United States in particular. A world where violent gang cults posed a serious threat to anyone who dared set foot outside of established police zones. Beyond the walls of those safe zones, there were only three forces of note: the violent renegades who made up those gang cults, the mercenary sanctioned ops who accepted blood money in exchange for carrying out corporate or political bidding, and the embattled United States road cavalry. It's a world with many familiar historical concepts, but with completely different outcomes. In this timeline, John F. Kennedy lost the presidency to Richard Nixon in 1960, after his affair with Marilyn Monroe went public. This led to a series of increasingly divergent historical events such as the rapid advance of technology, the lifting of restrictions on pollution, a public ban on rock music, and the end to racial strife. It's a world where both Spiro Agnew and Oliver North got turns as the President of the United States, Nelson Mandela ended up becoming the new Pope of the Catholic Church, and Elvis Presley gave up music to instead become a grizzled bounty hunter. So, where does Auroch Digital fit into all of this? Well, they're a fairly well-established game developer who have a history of working on video game adaptations of classic strategy games, including another Games Workshop classic, Chainsaw Warrior. And more recently, they've even started work on a video game adaptation of Steve Jackson Games' classic strategy title, Ogre. Auroch Digital is currently working to update and modernize the Dark Future storyline in their new video game adaptation of the original property. The timeline has been advanced to the year 2023 to a point where corporations have usurped the government's authority, and the highways, now known as the Big Empty, have become a gang-infested post-apocalyptic nightmare. The player will take command of a sanctioned op, a group of highway mercenaries who are equipped with heavily armed and armored vehicles. The player will have to earn enough money to keep their group in business, while also finding the money to further improve their equipment and their drivers to handle bigger and more deadly jobs. The roads of the Big Empty are dangerous, and especially unforgiving to anyone who's undertrained or under-equipped. The player will also have to manage their reputation, picking and choosing what kind of jobs they want to handle. Will they police the roads for the common good, helping the citizenry and taking the streets back from violent gang cults? Or will they accept payment from the highest bidders, instead focusing on corporate dirty work like sabotage and outright assassination? Whether a well-meaning altruist or a cold-hearted profiteer, the player will accomplish these missions through the use of pulse-pounding, adrenaline-pumping vehicular carnage as they speed along desolate highways at insane speeds with their integrated weapon systems blazing away at anything that moves. Well, kind of. The original Dark Future was a turn-based tabletop wargame, but the video game adaptation will be using a system that they have decided to call the Real-Time Shift Vehicular Action Strategy System. Which, honestly, sounds an awful lot like a conventional real-time with pause combat system. The player won't control their vehicles directly, like in a conventional action game, but will instead assign tactical orders to each of the vehicles under their control. The game can be paused at any time, allowing the player to assign new orders, which they will then be able to watch play out once the game is unpaused again. Combat can be approached with as much or as little micromanagement as the player wishes, as the player either doles out second-by-second order adjustments, or simply sits back and watches their team tear the opposition apart in real time. Now, I'll admit I do tend to prefer turn-based action myself, especially since I have fond memories of playing the original Dark Future back in the 90s. But given the high-octane nature of the game, I think that the real-time with pause system is a fair compromise. It will theoretically allow the player to focus on the strategic side of the game while still enjoying the sort of action-oriented visuals that you would expect from a game about automotive combat. I'm certainly curious to see how this combat system works out, and I'm definitely eager to get my hands on any strategy game built around the classic automotive combat genre that's largely fallen out of favor since the 1990s. Unfortunately, we don't really know much about the specifics on how the game is going to work, or even when the game is going to come out. Auroch Digital has been poised on the edge of early release on Steam for several months now, but hopefully we'll be getting some more concrete dates from them in the near future. Once the game is officially released on Steam, it will initially be available through Steam's Early Access program for a special discounted price. Their current plan is to keep the game in early access for roughly 3 months, during which time they will implement 3 major updates, each one adding a new chunk of story to discover, as well as new features to play with, eventually leading to the game's full release. But for now, if you're interested in the game, your best bet is to add it to your wish list on Steam. That way you'll be promptly informed once it officially enters early access. Then again, if you're a big fan of Dark Future, or automotive combat in general like I am, then you've probably already done that. Unfortunately, there's not much else to say about the game right now, at least not until we can get our hands on it. So for now, this is RetconRaider, signing off. Thanks for listening. Oh, and remember, although I do love talking about Dark Future, Blood Red States, you can find out all the latest news about it by visiting the official website and the store page on Steam. Links are in the description.